9.4 Individual Demand Schedule. Every individual demands some goods and services for the satisfaction of his or her wants. In the example given earlier, we talked about Varsha's demand for rice, dal, wheat flour, and mangoes for a week. Varsha's purchases will not stop there. She will again purchase these items whenever she needs them. Whether she will buy the same quantity or not next time when she goes to the market depends on whether the price of the goods have remained same or not. Let us only consider the purchase of any one commodity, say mangoes, by her in order to analyze the demand of one commodity by her over time. Let us also think that the prices of other items, money in Varsha's pocket, and her tastes have not changed. After observing Varsha's purchases of mangoes over time, we notice the following. If price of mangoes is 50 rupees per kg, Varsha buys 2 kgs of mangoes for a week. If the price of mangoes rises to 60 per kg, she buys only 1.5 kgs of mangoes for a week. If the price falls to 40 rupees per kg, she is willing to buy more, that is 2.5 kgs of mangoes for a week. It means if price is 50 rupees per kg, Varsha's demand for mangoes is 2 kg per week. At a price of 60 rupees per kg, her demand is only 1.5 kg per week. And at a price of 40 rupees per kg, her demand is 2.5 kg. We can present this in the table 9.1 below. So, table 9.1 shows different quantities of mangoes demanded at different prices by Varsha per week. Such a tabular presentation of different quantities of commodity demanded at different prices is called an individual demand schedule. So, the individual demand schedule, table 9.1, Varsha's demand for mangoes, the price of the mangoes per kg increases from 30 rupees per kg to 80 rupees per kg, and the quantity of mangoes demanded per week in kg decreases from 0.5 kg for 60 rupees to 3 kgs per week for 30 rupees mangoes. So we see that demand is inversely proportional to price. If the price increases, the demand decreases, and if the price decreases, the demand increases. So, it's called an individual demand schedule. Demand for a commodity by an individual buyer is called individual demand. Individual demand is a quantity of good commodity that an individual buyer is willing to buy at a given price per unit of time. So next, law of demand. The law of demand gives the relationship between price of a commodity and the quantity demanded, when all factors other than price of the commodity remain unchanged. As discussed earlier, demand for a commodity is affected by many factors such as price of the commodity, price of related goods, income of the buyer, taste and preferences, etc. So the law of demand gives effect of change in price of the commodity on the quantity demanded. So must remember this also. Demand for the commodity is affected by many factors such as price of the commodity, price of related goods, income of the buyer, taste and preferences, etc. So among these, price of related goods there are two types of related goods: substitute goods and inferior goods. Substitute goods are those goods which can be used in place of the good demanded. Examples of substitute goods are tea and coffee, Coke and Pepsi, etc. So, inferior goods are those goods whose demand decreases as income of the buyers increases. So, so the law of demand gives effect of change in price of the commodity on the quantity demanded. So, the law of demand gives gives the effect of change in price for the quantity of demanded, assuming that all other factors such as price of related goods, income of the buyer, taste and preferences remain constant. And so the law of demand is given as if the price of a commodity falls, its quantity demanded increases, and if the price of the commodity rises, its quantity demanded falls, other things remaining constant. So the law of demand is illustrated in table 9.1. As the price increases, the quantity decreases. 80 rupees per kg of mangoes, only half a kg is bought, but as the price of the commodity decreases, the demand increases. So at 30 rupees per kg, 3 kgs of mangoes are bought. So that is the law of demand. You must also remember that the law of demand means that other factors determining the demand, remaining constant, price of a commodity and quantity demanded, are inversely related. Inversely related again means if the price rises, the demand falls. If the price falls, the demand rises. Individual demand curve 9.6. When the above mentioned relationship of price and quantity demanded is represented diagrammatically, it is called demand curve. Thus, demand curve is a diagrammatic representation of the law of demand. The demand curve shows different quantities of a commodity demanded at different prices in diagrammatic form. We can construct Varsha's demand curve for mangoes, individual demand curve, with the help of table 9.1. See the demand curve in figure 9.1. So that's at the bottom of the page 90. 90, yes. So take quantity demanded of mangoes on the x-axis. Quantity of the mangoes demanded varies from 0.5 to 3, and price of mangoes on the y-axis. The price of mangoes varies from 30 to 80 rupees per kg. On the y-axis, vertical, the prices starting from 30 to 80 are plotted. On the x-axis, horizontal axis, the quantity of mangoes starting from 0.5 kg to 3 kgs are plotted. Varsha has demanded 0.5 kg of mangoes at rupees 80, and this combination is shown at point A in the graph, given in figure 9.1. Similarly, the other combination of prices and quantity of mangoes, as given in table 9.1, are shown as points B, C, D, E, and F. By joining these points, Varsha's demand curve for mangoes has been derived. So the curve slopes downward. Thus, the demand schedule and the demand curve both represent the same relationship between price and quantity demanded, and the demand schedule represents it in tabular form and demand curve in diagrammatic form. So in text questions 9.2, state the law of demand. So the law of demand is given as if the price of a commodity falls, its quantity demanded increases, and if price of the commodity rises, its quantity demanded falls, other things remaining constant. So second question, what are the assumptions of the law of demand? So the assumption of the law of demand means that other factors determining the demand remaining constant, price of a commodity and its quantity demanded are inversely proportional. So the other factors which affect demand are the price of related goods, income of the buyer, taste and preferences, etc. So third question, what will happen to your demand for apples if price of apples rises from 80 rupees per kg to 100 rupees per kg, assuming that your income, taste and preferences, etc. do not change? If the price of apples rises from 80 rupees to 100 rupees per kg, my demand for apples will fall. So, 9.7 shape of the individual demand curve. According to the law of demand, when all the factors determining demand remain constant, the buyer buys more quantity of a commodity at lower price and less of it at a higher price. Due to this inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded, the demand curve slopes downward from left to right. So the demand curve slopes downward from left to right, as can be seen in figure 9.1. And so the demand curve slopes downward from left to right. But the question arises, why does the buyer buy more quantity of commodity at a lower price and less of it at a high price? Put in another way, why does the demand curve slope downwards from left to right? The most important reasons for inverse relationship between price and commodity demanded are explained below. Reason 1. When more and more units of a commodity are consumed, satisfaction derived from successive units of commodity goes on diminishing. For example, a hungry person gets maximum satisfaction from the first chapati, lesser satisfaction from the second chapati, and still lesser from the third chapati, and so on. If he gets more satisfaction, he'll be ready to pay more, and if he gets less satisfaction, he'll be ready to pay less price for it. It means he'll be willing to buy more quantity of commodity at a lower price and less of it at a higher price. The law of demand also provides the same information, which will lead to downward slope of demand curve. Reason 2. Suppose you buy mangoes from the market. If the price of mangoes is rupees 40 per kg, you buy 2 kgs of mangoes at this price. If the price of mangoes falls from 40 rupees per kg to 20 rupees per kg, your real income of purchasing power is doubled, and you can now buy double quantity of this 4 kgs of mangoes with the same money income. Thus, a buyer can buy more quantity of a commodity when the price falls and less of it when the price rises, leading to the downward slope of the demand curve. Reason 3. When price of a commodity falls, it becomes relatively cheaper than its substitutes, although price of substitutes remains the same. For example, if the price of Coke falls, it becomes comparatively cheaper than its substitute, that is Pepsi. People start buying Coke in place of Pepsi. Alternatively, Pepsi is substituted by Coke, leading to more demand for Coke when its price falls. On the other hand, demand for this commodity will fall when its price rises. It will lead to downward slope of the demand curve. Index questions 9.3. Question 1. What will happen to the real income of the buyer if the price of the commodity falls? With the real income of the buyer, if the price of a commodity falls, then his ability to purchase more of the commodity will increase. Question 2. What will happen to the shape? What will be the shape of the demand curve when there is an inverse relationship between price and its quantity demanded? The demand curve will slope downwards from left to right when the price and the quantity demanded are when there is an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded, the demand curve will slope downward from left to right. Third question, you are thirsty and you have already taken 1 glass of water. Whether the satisfaction derived from second glass of water you drink will increase or decrease. The satisfaction derived from the second glass of water will decrease. Fourth question, draw demand curve with the help of the data given below. Rupees 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Quantity demanded 20, 16, 12, 8, 4. So this can be done. On the x-axis you plot the price, the quantity demanded from. On the x-axis you plot the quantity demanded from 4 to 20, and on the y-axis you plot the price from 1 to 5 and mark off points A, B, C, D, and E, A, B, C, D, and E, and join the points, and you'll see that this line slopes downwards from left to right. So that will be the demand curve.